Okay, we have any discussion? Mr. Omar.
While we wait for technical difficulties, this will be a lot shorter, and that's just that it sounds like some have said that they can't make the mayor decision without some sort of a charter commission, and so you know, from my perspective, whether it be through a charter commission or it be through you know, staff putting together a list of you know, discussion points, I'd be in favor of going ahead and moving forward with a charter review of some kind. I do find it interesting in the presentation, and I didn't know this, Michelle, that it looked like we had done 4 charter reviews in something like 25 years or 28 years, I think, and then we did 0 in the last 24. And so, you know, I think that the wisdom of our predecessors was that there were 4 charter review commissions in that period of time. You know, maybe after 20 some odd years, it's time for another one. So that's my position, and I probably won't have a whole heck of a lot more to say.
Any more discussion? Mr. Dunn.
Right. Michelle, out of the first 24 years and the reviews, how many times was it changed? 0. Right. Okay. That's my point. Thank you.
Any more discussion? Ms. Maczka.
Well, I've kind of, like Mr. Solomon, I knew this was coming, and so, you know, before I was elected and then after I was elected, I read the charter and I've read it again. And Michelle, I appreciate the details, and you confirmed what my gut was, and what talking to those who were involved is. It's a very extensive process, and so I kind of have 2 categories about this topic that I call it the legalities and the realities. So in terms of the legalities, I think absolutely my number one concern about this charter is the items that are in conflict with or superseded by state or federal laws. And I think the city attorneys weighed in on this, but I would like to make sure that the legalities of the charter are addressed. And then moving on to the realities, you know, I guess when I think about what this undertaking is going to be for the city, I think that if we're going to do it, we need to take the time and dedicate the resources to do it the right way. And in my mind, what that involves, which was why I was saying we cannot do this in the next 30 days. I don't think that this is a 30-day process. I think it's going to involve extensive, I think it's going to take an extensive effort to determine who's actually going to sit on that commission, because I think that the danger, quite frankly, if we're all honest, is the personal agendas. And we're going to have to do a very thorough job of making sure that we allow broad input from a whole variety of citizens. And so to me, that in and of itself is going to involve a lot of work on the city manager's office and the staff, Pam, the city secretary, and the council, because I think we're going to have to actually interview candidates to determine how are we going to choose this commission, which, again, if that's what the will of the council is, I'm willing to do it. I just want us to all be very realistic about what we're going to undertake. You know, as Michelle mentioned, you know, more than a year, 36 meetings, and that was at a time when, you know, I know that life has gotten faster. I mean, I know it's hard to get, it's hard to get a PTA meeting with a quorum. So, you know, I think that while it may have taken a year last time, I think we all need to be ready for something that's a little longer than that. I mean, I don't think that you can schedule 33 meetings in 12 months. I mean, that's a lot of meetings in a month. And so, again, and I know where Amir falls on this, but I'll ask it of everybody, you know, as we review the charter, I think each of us needs to say what needs to be changed, because you undergo a charter review if you think things need to be changed. And then kind of my bottom line, you know, as I was really thinking about how I felt about this, and, you know, we all were asked these questions during the campaign, and is it a charter review, and is it a commission, and you know, what I've learned through educating myself and input from those who've been there is that there's quite a few variations of what that means. So what I did was I went back to look at what council voted on as our agenda for the next 2 years. You know, my concern is we set a very aggressive agenda. And then I looked at where we'd ranked, and I went through the top 25. For land use and development, we had 6 of our short-term action items under that category. For community vitality and neighborhood integrity, we had 4. Fiscal responsibility, 4 action items. Economic development, 3. Communications, 2. Public services, 1. Environmental, 2. Marketing, 1. Governance, we had golf and council meeting efficiency, 1 each. So I guess the question we have to ask ourselves, is this the most pressing issue facing this council? And if we think it is, I will be in favor of jumping full force into it. But I think we all need to be very realistic in knowing that if we take this on, that's what this term is going to be about, is going to be about the charter review. It's going to require our attention. It's going to require our input. And I'm willing to listen to my peers to determine whether each of us feels that this is the most important issue facing our community during this 2-year term. So there's my soapbox.
Comments? Any more? Any more discussion? Mr. Dunn.
You know, I was lucky in the last election. I was unopposed. But even when I was unopposed, I specifically said that I was not in favor of a charter review other than where the state overrode the charter. I still stand by that. So as Councilmember Maczka said, just where the legalities, and I had a couple conversations, from my understanding there's not a whole lot, if any. So with that, my only point or next item is, and Ms. Maczka stole my thunder on it, is what specifically needs to be changed.
Any more comments? Okay, well, I keep going back to that League of Women Voters forum on the charter, on the Richardson Charter. And when Dr. Robert Lowry, who's head of the political science department at UTD, when he was asked the question, is there a model charter? His response was, Richardson's charter is pretty close to the model charter. And so that convinced me that we've got a pretty good charter as is. Okay, any more discussion? Mr. Omar.
Yeah, I just, number one, I don't think this is the most pressing matter before the council, and so from that perspective, I agree with Councilman Maczka. I think I agree there's a lot more important things, and I agree that this probably would take a lot of time if we did decide to do it. My position at this point is that, I find it interesting that the answer to the reason why we can't or shouldn't move forward with a mayor discussion is because it's going to take more things in the charter to consider as far as different elements that might need to be adjusted. But then when we come to the charter decision, we shouldn't do that either because it's not the number one thing. I mean, I think we've got 60 short-term action items. None of them, well, only one of them is the number one thing, and I think we've already ranked those. And so, ultimately the Charter Review Commission, if we decide we wanted to move forward, I don't know that that's the way to do it. If what we're saying, and let me come up with a compromise solution, because my guess is that this goes down as well in terms of the Charter Review Commission, which is fine. But perhaps a compromise position is if the reason why we can't talk about or move forward on anything on the mayor is because it's more far-reaching as it relates to the charter, but we also don't want the burden of having to look at the charter or have a charter review commission because it's going to take up a whole lot of hours and time, and I agree to some degree with that. Then perhaps what we do is we simply say, staff, come back to us in whether it's a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and tell us, hey, what other items on this charter would need to be changed in order to consider the election or selection of mayor. I mean, if the reason you're against the mayor thing is because of the charter implications, we don't have to do a full charter review to look at that. So, there is a compromise position there, and we could just simply vote this no because of the way we happen to write it in the short-term action items, or we could say, hey, there's another way to do this. So I'll leave it at that.
Any more discussion? Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that the challenge here is that it has been 23 years since we've done a full look at the entire charter. But I think that the issue is here is I think at the stratospheric level, if I might use that term, I don't think, at least for me, I don't have a philosophical problem with a charter review, but the devils is always in the details. And the concern I have is simply this: is that before we would go forward with something like this, I would want to know, what is it that we're going to look at? How much is it? How much staff time is it going to take? How much an election would cost, and how long do we think that this would take? So for me personally, like I said, at the stratospheric level, I don't philosophically have a problem with the charter review, but what I have an issue with are the details of how it would be implemented if we were to do it. And so that's why for me personally, taking a vote on this is I would be a little uncomfortable because I don't know that I have all the details to make that decision at this moment.
Any more discussion?
You want a motion, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, I'd make
Okay.
a motion, Mr. Solomon.
Well, I move that the City Council cease the discussions relative to the charter review and take no action at this time.
We have a motion by Mr. Solomon and a second by Mr. Dunn. Any discussion on the motion? All in? Yes, Mr. Mitchell.
One question I have is just to make sure that everybody understands is that this is ending all discussion about this topic, correct? I just want to make sure. And at this time, in this council, in this 2-year set term, correct?
You always take it up again, I guess.
Well, and the reason why I say that is because I think that to me, well, no. The reason why I say that is because to me, I have a lot of unanswered questions that I would like to get answered, and to vote on this and just say put it behind us for the next 2 years, I have some struggles with that. No, it's not the most pressing issue. Absolutely, it's not. But for me, I would really like to get these questions answered. But if that's the will of the council to take a vote on it, then
You can always get those issues.
that's true.
And you get more of us to agree with you, then we'll bring it back up again.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? That carries 5-2 with Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Omar voting no.